about the most recent conference, which took place in Sydney in September. And Sue, Monica, and I had the wonderful experience of taking part in it. There were 235 women there from 30 countries, and you've been seeing their pictures as you came in up on the screen there. Attending a conference like that always expands one's horizons. There were large groups of women there from different parts of the Pacific: Samoa, Fiji, the Solomon Islands, Papua, places I certainly knew very little about. We learned about the legacy of the past, when European blackbirders kidnapped Pacific Islanders to work as labourers in the sugarcane plantations of Australia and Fiji. And we learned about the struggle for peace in these countries today. For example, there were two pastors there from the Solomon Islands, Susan and Judith. They came from opposing sides of the Civil War, which ended 7 years ago. Susan's brother was murdered and beheaded by men from Judith's island, and his body was thrown into the market square. She said, "We came to the point when we knew we had to forgive. From this heart of forgiveness, I see Judith as my sister. Burying my brother without a head was very hard, but now the hate is gone." The conference was full of such stories, some of them almost too painful to listen to, but a huge testament to the power of the human spirit. There was a young woman from South Africa who had been gang raped. She told how she'd taken part in a peace circle where she'd been able to tell her story for the first time. "I had so much hatred," she said, "but I took my unforgiving heart and I made it a forgiving heart." Some of the women had experienced domestic violence. Others had been caught up in the conflicts in their countries. And some of the Aboriginal women who took part were members of the stolen generations who had been taken from their mothers as children in the interests of assimilation. And of course, we Brits weren't the only people whose eyes were opened by the people we met. One of the speakers was a human rights advocate from East Timor, Filomena dos Reis. Her husband had disappeared in 1991 during the Indonesian military occupation, and she still doesn't know what happened to him. She described how she has raised her daughters not to hate. There were 5 Indonesian women in the audience, and one of them, a young woman in her 20s, got up in tears to express her pain at what Filomena had experienced. A similar encounter took place between an Afghan refugee in Australia, who has founded a charity to help widows and orphans in Afghanistan, and a young Russian woman whose uncle had fought in Afghanistan. As well as opportunities for women to share their experiences of working for peace, the conference also had sessions on how to find inner peace through silence and meditation. One morning, we all went out into the grounds for half an hour of silence before the coffee break, and it was striking how slow people were to come back after that. And it was also striking to see how much noise 230 women make when they talk about silence.